The United States Special Envoy for Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg, has announced that the stationing of a European force west of the Dnieper River is under consideration as a solution to the war in Ukraine. The proposed force would involve participation from 4 European countries, including Poland. The chairman of the Polish Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczyński, addressed the issue, asserting that if the elections are won by the civic candidate supported by the Law and Justice Party, Karol Nawrocki, there will be no deployment of Polish soldiers to Ukraine. This issue has already been addressed in the statements of our presidential candidate. We believe that at this time, in view of the total lack of public support for such a decision, and in view of the real shape of Polish-Ukrainian relations, there is no justification for such a decision or any basis for it. As this decision requires the consent of the President of the Republic, we are taking steps to ensure that our candidate, if he becomes president, will simply not agree to it. 2 weeks after presidential candidate Karol Nawrocki held talks at the White House, President Donald Trump's administration granted Poland permission to join the group of countries that may purchase, without restrictions, the latest chips required for the development of artificial intelligence. This represents a reversal of the government decision made by Joe Biden. Officials in Donald Tusk's government also endorsed the success of the project. The decision was announced by Karol Nawrocki, the civic candidate for president. This decision by the US Department of Commerce is of significant importance. During my recent visit to Washington, D.C., I urged senior White House officials and congressional leaders to reverse President Biden's microprocessor rules for artificial intelligence. I would like to express my gratitude to Donald Trump for his role in restoring trust in US-Poland relations. This is a key step towards strengthening Allied innovation and Poland's role in the AI economy. 2 weeks ago, during his visit to the White House, which lasted more than 7 hours, he met US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and President Trump himself, among others. I also made this point during discussions by sharing your voice with representatives of the White House. I emphasized that this issue is of great importance to us and to the development of technological innovation. I also highlighted the significance of investment in the development of Poland. As a candidate, I conveyed the opinion of the Polish people.
Karol Nawrocki.
Karol Nawrocki spent a considerable amount of time in the United States, and not just a short visit. He engaged in an extensive discussion with Marco Rubio. To use his Polish title, he could be considered the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the United States. A few weeks later, the situation changed significantly, and Poland no longer experienced restrictions in this regard. Could this be mere coincidence? I don't think so. Washington can no longer ignore the political repression under Donald Tusk-led Polish government, nor the EU's censorship rules that threaten free speech both in Poland and the United States, wrote Jim Jordan, the chairman of the Committee on the Judiciary of the US House of Representatives, along with 4 other congressmen, in a letter to Michael McGrath, the EU Commissioner for Justice and the Rule of Law. US politicians condemn censorship practices and demand urgent action from Brussels. Congressmen expressed concern about recent allegations that Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government is weaponizing Poland's justice system to target and censor political opponents. The 4-page document then goes on to list, with appropriate citations, all the concerning moves from the Tusk government that appear designed to silence and damage its political opposition, particularly in the lead-up to the 2025 presidential election, the first round of which is scheduled for this Sunday, May the 18th. This letter is really worrying. It shows that Poland's reputation has been damaged around the world. It also shows that the Polish and American governments do not have good relations. The Americans recall the stripping of the immunity of Law and Justice Chairman Jarosław Kaczyński, as well as reports that investigators have mistreated his close associate, which may have led to the death of Barbara Szczypek. This shows that Europe and the world can see everything that is happening in Poland, the opposition says. We don't support street protests or using foreign influence in politics. We support Polish sovereignty and want to settle these issues in our own country. But Tusk has gone so far this is already drawing the attention of countries such as the United States. We want Poland to have democracy and the rule of law. US congressmen are concerned whether the Tusk government is upholding the EU's democratic values and whether it will further attempt to silence its political rivals by using anti-democratic laws like the EU's Digital Services Act, or DSA, to censor speech that criticizes the Tusk government. The House Judiciary Committee obtained documents that reveal that the Tusk government is willing to attempt to censor online content with which it disagrees. This is evidenced by the fact that the Polish Digital Ministry has already tried to pressure TikTok into removing political content that's not even directly critical of the government, such as posts that drew attention to the ecological impact of electric vehicles. This might lead to the creation of a separate moderation regime for Europe and the rest of the world. The DSA may set de facto global censorship standards and thus restrict Americans' online speech, the letter argues. US congressmen have no doubt as to who is responsible for the attacks on Televizia Republika. Two names have been mentioned, Prime Minister Donald Tusk and Digitization Minister Krzysztof Gawkowski. In a letter to the European Commission, the congressmen state, the report also suggests that Prime Minister Tusk's government has taken aim at Polish conservative media. This is further confirmation that the Americans are keeping a close eye on the situation in Poland and support freedom of speech. Republika, Poland's largest news station, also firmly stands on the side of free speech. US congressmen have serious doubts about Poland's adherence to democratic principles. The document is addressed to the European Union Commissioner for the Rule of Law, Michael McGrath. In addition, two specific names are mentioned, Prime Minister Donald Tusk and his deputy, Minister of Digitization, Krzysztof Gawkowski. Now we have official reactions from members of Congress, institutions of members of Congress who defend freedom of speech. Since the ruling coalition took power, it has tried to discredit independent TV stations like Televizia Republika. This includes banning our journalists from the Prime Minister's press conferences, sabotaging our advertisers, and even physical attacks on us. It was Deputy Prime Minister Krzysztof Gawkowski, mentioned in the congressman's letter, who threatened to revoke the license of this station. The American administration is well aware of the restrictions on freedom of speech in Poland. On the day of Donald Trump's inauguration as the 47th President of the United States, we organized a Polish-American conference in Washington, D.C. Among the speakers was Mercedes Schlapp, a former senior White House official who declared that Televizia Republika would not be left alone in the face of attacks from the current government. Everything you are doing at Republic Television is causing great fear among those in power in your country. You have our support and the support of CPAC. The whole world will know if anyone raises a hand against you or persecutes you. If they attack you, they will have to deal with us as well. The ruling coalition, headed by Prime Minister Donald Tusk, does not operate according to democratic principles, but according to a system that resembles historical regimes. The Prime Minister calls it fighting democracy.
Mamy dzisiaj potrzebę działania w tych kategoriach demokracji walczącej.
The man responsible for all this is Donald Tusk, who is trying to stifle freedom of speech and prevent journalists from asking him difficult questions. Today, it is Televizia Republika that is the mainstay of freedom of speech. They are fighting us because we are independent and we hold the authorities to account. I travel to even the smallest towns, where we are a window on the world and a ray of freedom for millions of people, which Tusk and Trzaskowski want to steal from them. Televizia Republika is created not only by journalists, but also by our viewers. We thank you wholeheartedly and promise not to disappoint you.